Thank you to Sakuraco and TokyoTreat for sponsoring today's video. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video. So today's video is going to be a little bit of spoilers if you have not watched Monday's video, as I worked in my sketchbook kind of designing Akemi's siblings. So I'm going to try my best to keep this portion of the video kind of spoiler free for now until we get to probably the later half that I will do kind of more of a reveal of the basically Akemi's siblings. So I had some footage which I accidentally recorded, which was not in focus because I was not supposed to sketch them on camera, as I was just treating these as like a way for me to get familiar with their design. So that's why they weren't on focus, nor were they like in frame properly. So let's get started with the actual drawing for today's session. So what I actually had planned was that I wanted to do kind of like a group portrait of all three of them, but like I said, I'm going to keep this a little bit spoiler free, at least for the first half of the video. So I'm going to plan out the kind of poses. Now, the pose that I found, I specifically searched up something that had 3 people in it, and I found one that was kind of like a concept photo from the K-pop group. I don't know if it's like Vivi's, VIVIZ. So it's basically, I think it's like G Friends, former members made their own group and they are now under this name, but they have a really cute kind of like group photo, but kind of felt more like almost family portrait-esque. So that's why I kind of wanted to do for today. But the way how I'm going to do this to keep it kind of spoiler free for the other 2 siblings is that I'm going to be showing you only the drawing process of Akemi, and then we'll do the reveal a little bit later. So I'm going to try my best not to open the layers, and I do think my filming was a little bit janky here and there, and the reason being is that I was on a call with my friends at the time, as we usually do like a weekly call on Wednesdays, but I decided to record and film at the same time because I actually don't know why I did that. It's like a whole thing with my setup, but I don't want to get into, but I did do it at the same time, so some of the footage might be a little bit weird, it might be a little bit darker, the lighting might change and stuff depending on the time, and as well if I was on the call with the friends or not. So the whole thing is that I tried my best to show you at least a good portion of the drawing session of Akemi. So if you guys are unfamiliar with my OCs, I am trying to expand their universe, or in my case like the cast of my OCs, a little bit larger, just because I found myself that sometimes I feel very drained from trying to draw fan art for specific fandoms, or if something goes down in a fandom, sometimes I don't really like to participate or consume the media. So it's like I find I have less and less things I am motivated to draw, and I found it a little bit easier when I could draw some of my OCs, but I draw certain OCs like over and over again, so I found it a little bit easier if I could have a larger range so that I could have a little bit more variety. So hopefully that makes sense. So for coloring, I decided to first sketch off Akemi first, then I would change the sketch color to be a little bit warmer. I used the lasso tool with the color fill option turned on. We kind of filled in the base for Akemi. After that, I alpha locked it so that we can lock our pixels and I stay within the entire selection of the color. And I'm starting to add my shadows and all my highlights and stuff before we even get to even trying to render Akemi to some certain degree. Now, I do want to preface this saying that I ended up drawing Akemi first, but I ended up coloring him last. So because I was trying to keep the other layers hidden so that I didn't do a reveal right away, it was a little bit hard to keep his colors consistent. So I don't really remember if his skin tone and like his skin temperature, more like it, is even similar to the rest of them. I'm hoping that it was. I tried my best to color pick some of the colors that I had placed on the other siblings to Akemi, but I made sure to turn the layers off so that I could keep it a secret. So for now, this is kind of like the coloring portion, and I have like very simple lighting for the background, which I didn't really show me doing, so I decided to keep it a little bit on the cooler side, a little bit more neutral, but like a small indication of some kind of lighting. But for the most part, there's no harsh lighting at all for this entire thing, because I didn't want it to be like, well, I could have made it super dramatic, and I would have liked to do that, but it would have been easier for me to do it if I didn't have to split them up, because I would like to take and consider everyone's like position alongside with like rendering them all at once, it would just be a lot more easier. I tried my best to keep the sketching portion and the coloring portion along with like initial shading and all that a little bit on the shorter side for today's little session, as I am going to be doing a bunch of different sketches afterwards as well. I'm also lightening the lines a little bit here to make it match with the background, but then after that we can actually go to the rendering portion. So before we get to rendering and some of the other sketches, I wanted to talk about TokyoTreat and Sakuraco. Experience Japan from the comfort of your own home with their beautifully packed snack boxes. TokyoTreat is a monthly pop Japanese snack subscription box with 20 of the latest exclusive, limited edition, and seasonal flavor Japanese snacks that are only available in Japan for a limited time. For this month, TokyoTreat has a very fun themed box with many snacks that I've actually never really seen before, including one that looks like a sword with some shurikens. I also see some hard gummies that I'm super looking forward to trying as well. While Sakuraco is an authentic Japanese snack subscription box, Sakuraco supports local Japanese snack makers, and each box comes with 20 traditional, authentic, and artisan Japanese snacks, but also includes Japanese teas and a special Japanese tableware. They have partnered with Kanagawa Prefectural Government for this box, so there's a lot of Yokohama snacks in this box, including biscuits and cookies. Also, the tableware for the box was the marquetry. I don't know how to pronounce it, but this plate dons a beautiful pattern inspired by the marquetry woodwork, which also pays homage to the Kanagawa artistic history. Both boxes come with a 24-page cultural guide, and the booklet includes information on each of the snacks in the box. This includes cultural information relating to that month and the location, and also includes allergen information and ingredients for each of the snacks. Also, if the snacks are vegetarian friendly or not. Each month has a different theme, meaning that you get to try out a whole new selection of new treats and snacks every month. For example, TokyoTreat's box theme for the month of May is the Ninja Snack Venture, while Sakuraco's was the flavors of Hakone. As always, let's try the tea. So this month's tea is actually the Hakone Story Ryokucha, which is a green tea. Maybe because of the fresh flavor, it tastes a little bit stronger, which I actually prefer, but it also is still very easy to drink. I also think it produces a very beautiful, rich green color after it's been steeping for a little bit. As for the snacks that I tried, the Kit Kat is always a must for me, and I've said this before, but chocolate with the orange flavor is also just one of my favorites. So this was definitely super tasty. Another thing that I really enjoyed from the TokyoTreat box was the Endo pea chips. It comes kind of like in a very cute packaging, and it does taste a lot like peas, kind of with an umami flavor. Then from the Sakuraco box, my favorite has to be the matcha konjac. So I've never really had anything this strong of a matcha flavor before in a snack, and I really like konjac jelly as well, so this warabi mochi was right up my alley. I was really interested in the white miso financer? I don't know how to pronounce this one, but I do like that it was actually not too sweet, as it has a bit of saltiness that complements the sweetness. So the saltiness comes from a white miso, so I was kind of really interested in testing that out, and it actually tastes really great and matches really nicely with the green tea. So if you would like to get a box for yourself or want to give these as a lovely gift to friends and family, please check out the link in the description and get your box today. Thank you again to Sakuraco and TokyoTreat for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to doing the rendering for that sibling illustration. So usually I treat rendering pretty much the same throughout all my pieces for the most part. So this one is no exception. I went ahead and merged my sketch layer after changing the sketch color to be more appropriately colored compared to its surrounding areas. Like I made the face a little bit more warmer, I made the hairlines a little bit on the cooler side to match his actual hair color and all that jazz. Then I'll merge my sketch layer alongside with my rough color layer together, and we can start beginning the rendering process and the cleaning up. So this phase took me the longest out of even just any other step, but I probably spent the least amount of time on Akemi himself versus his siblings, because I think it's mostly due to the fact that I did these out of order. So the bulk of my call with my friends, I tend to go on autopilot mode because it's a little bit harder for me to be like, oh, I want to contribute to the conversation, or I want to give like my full attention to my friends when they're like telling stories, or like we're venting and complaining about things, or like they want my opinion on something, which usually means that my brain will go on autopilot mode when I'm doing rendering, which is not the worst part. But I did realize that I think out of the 3 siblings, I probably spent the most time on the eldest sibling. So to kind of give you a little bit of background, just in case you didn't go watch Monday's video or you haven't heard me talk about Akemi's siblings in the past, I always planned for Akemi to be the middle child out of a group of 3. So he would have a younger sibling and an older sibling, being a older brother and a younger sister. So I always wanted to have the age gap to be a little bit larger too between all 3 of them, because I think it will kind of give them a different dynamic versus if they were all similar in age. So for Akemi, he's about 18 years old, similar to Sato. So they're kind of like freshly graduated from high school. They are entering post-secondary if they are participating in like post-academic endeavors. So for Akemi, he's in the kind of like design field. I'm still debating whether or not he'll be like, you know, be in design for a little bit, maybe switch to ID, or he might stay in VCD, which is like visual communication designs, rather than like, let's say, industrial design. And I've only chose that route for him is 1, I think it fits his character, and 2, I do have experience in kind of like dabbling in both of those areas because I majored in fine arts, but I had to take courses for pretty much both of those little fields as well. So I have at least a little bit of insight towards those. But for his siblings, so his sibling, that is the eldest, so the eldest brother, I want him to be around anywhere between like 25 to 28, I think. I would kind of ideally have him as, and he's gonna be like your typical salaryman type of person, but the, not gimmick, but his design is a little bit more on the plain side, a little bit more subdued, professional looking, and then he has more of a nightlife where he kind of works 2 jobs. So salaryman for his like typical 9 to 5, and then probably like evening to night he works as a bartender, and I change up his look a little bit, and his hair color will actually match a little bit closer to his siblings once he kind of flips it over, which I'll get into maybe in the future. Or if you watched in the previous video on Monday, I did kind of experiment a little bit on that. Okay, so but before we talk about the younger sibling, here's Akemi all by himself, but here's kind of the little reveal of the other siblings. Now, I'm not in love with this piece, so I'm definitely gonna redo another one where I can draw them all together, because like I said, I don't think I was like fully paying attention when I was drawing them. But we have the younger sibling right here, which I did some small touch-ups on her alongside with the eldest sibling above, and I did it in a weird kind of family portrait-esque, but I would have loved to do more of a dramatic lighting on them next time. But yeah, so I'll go through the time lapse while I talk a little bit about the younger sibling. So the younger sibling, I have her set to be around the age of Koji, who is the other kind of younger character out of my little cast of OCs. And he's the one who usually hangs around Masaki and treats Masaki kind of like an older brother figure and a mentor to him. So for Koji, he's about like 12 to 13, so I kind of wanted the younger sister to be around the similar age so they can also interact and potentially have a different dynamic as well, because even though I have no real plans on making like a comic or a story for my characters, I still like to think about like how they would interact if they were to meet. So yeah. Okay, so back to the video a little bit. I did do some preliminary sketches in my sketchbook. I did a little bit more of like color experimenting in Procreate, which is kind of like the 2 little reference sheets that you saw earlier. Now these are not going to be something that's going to remain. Oh, also, small detail. I wanted to include like little indications of like piercing holes for his ears, because I feel like he would have had piercings at some point in his life, but maybe he doesn't feel like they're appropriate for his everyday job, so he takes them out. So it's kind of the little things on his ears. They're not moles, they're just holes in his ears. So yeah. For the rest of the video, I am going to be sketching with the 6B pencil. There's going to be 2 other sessions, which is this blue canvased one, and I'm just gonna doodle to see how I want to kind of like simplify their look a little bit. So I talked about this in the past that every time I make a new OC, I do like having some kind of semblance of a pattern or a way to simplify my OC so it makes me have an easier time drawing them. So for Maseki for sure, Kaisen for sure, I feel like every one of my OCs for the most part have like a specific kind of pattern to their hair so that I can almost always default to that pattern if I want the character to look like my OC. Hopefully that makes sense. Like no matter if I draw them in like a different outfit, because everyone's going to change their outfit from like day to day, but I do like having a standard outfit for them. My main priority is making their face look the same and probably body proportions to be at least consistent throughout all of them. Because I know for the fact that I've always changed up Masaki's proportions quite a bit every time. Sometimes I make him a little bit more bulkier on top. Sometimes I make him look very thin. Sometimes he's more like ruler thin, so it's like not really any like wider shoulders, anything. So I am going to hopefully in the future kind of establish a little bit more of a consistent look for all of my OCs. But one thing I do like is that as I sketch them more and more, I find little things that I kind of latch onto that I feel like represents my OC a lot and makes them a little bit more recognizable whenever I sketch them. So right now, definitely finding it a little more difficult to draw the eldest sibling the most. So also the reason I keep calling it eldest sibling or like younger sister or like the youngest is because I'm not 100% fixated on the names that I had planned for them. So if you watched the Monday's video, I mentioned that I actually planned their names or like some ideas for their names when I first made Akemi, which is about I think a year or two ago or like a year and a half ago. I first designed Akemi. I already, like I mentioned, had plans for him to be the middle child. So right now, I think I have this girl set as Anka, and there is like a meaning behind it and stuff because I did do a few like brief searches on kind of connecting their names in some sort of way. And then the eldest sibling I have is Arakan. So I don't know if I'm like super fixated on his name specifically. So the funny thing is, when I was initially drawing out their designs on like in my sketchbook, I was more confident with his design and I was more thinking on the lines that his design was going to change probably the least, or I was like for sure liking his the most. But as I was kind of like simplifying and drawing them over and over again, I found myself having a harder time keeping him consistent. And I don't know, I'm probably going to change his hair a little bit more, especially when it's down like this, because every time I draw it, it becomes inconsistent. So it's like not easy for me to separate his hair in a way that makes it look like him. So if you've seen me draw my other OCs like in the past, I do make sure that the base of like the simplified version of their hair kind of makes sense. But like oftentimes when I do more finished illustrations, I let things have like more hair strands. I kind of make it a little bit more detailed. Sometimes I break that mold that I keep them in, because I usually try to keep that only when I simplify their hair. But oftentimes, like if I'm doing a more finished piece, I don't want to keep everything like super blocky and super like chunked in. I'll see if I can find an example. I think Masaki is probably the easiest, and I've been having a little bit of a harder time doing that with Kaisen as well, because his hair is very much like formed very specifically in a way, especially his bangs. But for the most part, I am probably going to keep the design of the youngest sibling. So we are working on the last little illustration here. I'm doing a very quick time lapse of the sketching portion because I'm going to do a cleaner kind of line art sketch on top of these, and doing some coloring on them as well so you can get a better idea of their full outfit. And I mentioned earlier that the eldest sibling will have more of a simple outfit for both this look and his next kind of like night look, but his hair will change kind of more drastically if anything. Then we have the youngest, who is, I don't know, I think I'm set on her design. I might remove her glasses though. I'm not too sure if I want her to keep the glasses or not, because it does add a different element to her face. But I don't know. I have a sketch of her with the glasses and they look super cute. And then I have another one that I don't have her with the glasses, and I'm still torn between whether or not I want her to keep them on or off. So for now, I'm going to keep them on because some people on Monday's video suggested that, you know, it's kind of cute if all three of them have glasses so they match. Some people even brought up like, oh, maybe it's a genetic thing, so they have poor eyesight. Yeah, I'm not too sure. I do feel like this set of three siblings, they're very matchy with everything. I made sure their names started with A's, which I feel like is also just like common among like either families that want to name like all their children. Like I grew up with a childhood friend back when I used to live in a village, and they named all their kids, including like, actually don't know the wife's English name, but the dad's English name was Joshua, and all the other kids, including like, yeah, I think it's like they had 4 kids, so 2 sons, 2 daughters, all of them started with J's. And we used to be family friends with them for quite a while until they moved. But I always liked the idea of that. I think it's very cute. I know it's very prevalent in like a lot of Asian cultures as well, that they tend to have somewhat matching names. Because like even for like me and my brother and my cousins on my dad's side, our Chinese names are kind of like all linked together in some sort of way, with mine being a little bit different because I'm the only girl cousin on that side of like my dad's side of the family. So yeah, I don't know. I wanted them to be all starting with the letter A, which is why I didn't really want to have too much overlap when I was making the rest of my OCs at the time. But I don't know. So yeah, Anka's glasses may or may not come off. I do not know, but for the most part, I think I'm just gonna leave it for now. But let's talk about the sketches for a little bit. So the previous sketches, I was just kind of like doodling out of my brain. So there was not any like rhyme or reason. So we had like the triple, I guess like one head on top of another in a kind of like a stacking formation, which I kind of struggled with because I didn't want the height difference to be super obvious. So I wasn't sure if it's, I don't know, it made sense for them to stack their heads in that way and make it look natural. Then I had one where I think Anka is kind of like crying and kind of whining while the eldest is kind of like, you know, trying to figure out what happened, maybe comfort her a little bit. Then we have, I think, Akemi reading and him just hanging out with him. And then for these ones, I just really wanted to show off their outfits kind of like in a, not like a marching line, but I kind of wanted that thing where they're kind of walking in unison. But I feel like she's a little bit more spunky, a little kind of like playful. I don't want to say bratty, but I feel like she might be similar personality with Koji, in the fact that because they're going to probably be a little bit more mischievous if anything. So I do want her to be like having fun, moving around, kind of spinning if they're trying to like walk in a single file line. So then we have the eldest brother, and he is kind of like, at least how I thought of it, it's like returning from his night shift kind of thing, nightlife, and he's just super tired. He's changed back into his like normal suit attire, so he's like holding his suit jacket. He's still in his like dress pants, dress shirt kind of thing, stuck his tie in his pocket. So that's kind of the idea for these little sketches, and I thought it'd be fun to just do them with the 6B pencil for the line work. I used the old beach brush for the initial wash for the coloring because it kind of has a watercolor marker vibe, and I like adding like a base of an orange. Then after that I can add some other cooler tones, so luckily these guys all have cooler colors for their color palette. After that I take a stronger, more saturated orange, pick some edges and kind of color them in to kind of give it more of that watercolor look, where watercolor tends to dry sometimes. If you do like heavy washes, you kind of get that like darker outline on the edges, which I kind of like. And then after that I made another new layer, popped it underneath our initial washes to add a little bit of a drop shadow and giving it a similar treatment but the opposite, so cooler tone, adding some warmer colors on top, so it gives a little bit of that I don't know, that warmth that I really like whenever I do these kinds of little sketches. So that's probably all the little drawings that we did for today. So we did the kind of group portrait of all 3 siblings. I did the little 6B pencil doodles on the blue canvas. I had the other one with the kind of like walking sequence, and then the 2 little reference sheets that I didn't really show the process of, but hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!